Hello everybody, Backyard Bullion here, and a warm welcome to you all joining me for another Precious Metal Ramble. Traditionally, I have been very much in the camp of physically holding and owning gold and silver, and I know a lot of people out there are. But of course, stocks and shares form a really large part of global markets, and I have always traditionally invested in stocks and shares as well as other assets. So when Gold Mining Inc. got in touch with me to sponsor a video to do a little bit of a showcasing of what they're doing at the moment and their offerings, I thought it would be quite an interesting one for me as an investor in stocks and shares generally to have a look and see what's going on. So here's their website. We're going to have a quick look, I think, first at their corporate video because there's a few really interesting elements in here that I want to just focus on.
Gold mining today has become a leading company when it comes to the acquisition and development of gold projects throughout the Americas. Gold miners are running out of resources, and exploration has proven to be more difficult as firms have been cutting exploration expenditures. Over the past decade, the amount of gold resources found by miners has plunged to decade lows. We've come a long way since our IPO in 2011, and in this period, we've been aggressive and we've taken advantage of the cycles and especially the downturn in the cycle to make acquisitions. We're thrilled by the portfolio of projects that we've assembled. One of the core advantages of gold mining has been its ability to attract and assemble a technical team with decades of experience in exploration, development, and mining in the areas and jurisdictions that we're acquiring projects, and to forge partnerships with organizations that could become strategic partners in those countries, but at the same time, long-term financial backers of our business.
So I'm going to stop the video there because there's a few really interesting points which I just wanted to go into a little bit more. Now, the acquisition of assets is the key thing that I think is something to take note of here because they have been accumulating lots and lots of assets out there, and it is very interesting to see quite how much they've got. Now, there's some maths that I've been sent here which suggests that we, if we are investing in Gold Mining Inc., are buying essentially gold at fraction of the percentage of what the actual price of gold should be, and that's, I think, quite an interesting concept. It's of course dependent on actually getting that gold out of the ground and of course where the gold price will be. But one thing that was emphasized in that corporate presentation was about, of course, the acquisition of assets when the gold markets were low. So a lot of what you saw in that original corporate presentation there was showcasing some of the acquisitions across the 2016, 17, 18. And you've only got to look at where I was when I was buying gold and silver myself back then to see that I was paying peanuts compared with what you're paying now for gold. And one might argue that in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see some big increases in gold prices, which on its own right allows the company's kind of book value to be potentially a lot higher just from having those potential assets coming out of the ground. So you can see here, there's potentially, a significant amount of gold out there, nearly 32 million metric ounces, or million ounces, I should say, worth of gold. And that's a lot of gold. I mean, you're going to do well to get all of that gold out of the ground. So again, it's important to remember this with a pinch of salt. And it's not always about necessarily bringing it out of the ground to get that value, but it's certainly something to think in. Another thing that was interesting for me is the management team that was there. So if we just jump back to the website here, and if we look at the management and directors. So Amir Adrani, I hope I'm pronouncing that name right. He's somebody that's been doing this kind of thing for a long time. And one of the key things that he's been involved with is the basic huge evolution of the Uranium Royalty Corp company. And they've seen 400+% returns. Now, that's, of course, not guaranteeing anything that's going to happen for this particular organization. But at the same time, you can see there that they've got the experience, they've got the history, they've got the connections, and they've got the assets. So from my perspective, there's a lot of really good things going on there. And that's something definitely to consider in anything. You're often in these kinds of situations because, as you can see, it's a relatively small price for a share here in this company. You are looking a lot at what the people are going to bring to the table, what's different about them, how are they going to propel themselves forward. And I think that is something quite interesting to have that backing there from Amir. So very, very interesting indeed. Now, I want to jump into the corporate presentation quickly again here. again, it's about that potential growth that's there. And I think that one thing is for sure, they are quite a large organization within the confines of that gold mining in the Americas world. Now, I'm no expert in that entire marketplace. I'm by all means just an armchair investor that will pick stocks and shares based on sometimes historic performance and potential where they're going to go. But for me, a lot of these interesting elements of this whole situation is that there is this overvaluation potential for this organization, which I think is certainly something not to be underestimated. Now, I'll put links in the description of this video to their website and all of the different corporate presentation bits that they've got here so that you can see all of the information, because this is too big for me just to go through slide by slide and showcase for you all. You're going to fall asleep if I just do that, and I wouldn't do it as much justice, but it's definitely worth having a read through. Later down in the corporate presentation, you can start to see a lot more of the information about some of their key projects that they've got going on, and there are some really interesting bits of data that are coming out from these projects. Now, again, it's all speculation. It should be taken with a pinch of salt. It would be remiss of me to do a video like this without saying there's a lot of really great stuff here, and the corporate presentation that we saw at the start of this video, it's very corporate, and it's very much showcasing a lot of the things that are going on, and that's something that's good. It's nice to hear, but it's of course all relative to where the world will be going forward into the future. Now, for me, as somebody who likes to take some risks when it comes to investing, I mean, I wouldn't have a whole bunch of gold and silver if I didn't, or even other types of investments. What I think is interesting for me is if you have a look at the traditional historical stock price of this organization, and we zoom it back to the 10-year cycle, which is going to be back, they sort of had their IPO in 2012 here. So you can see that there's been periods where there's been huge amounts of growth coming out for the organization. Now, as with pretty much every organization out there at the moment, we're facing interesting times with cost of living increases and cost of doing business increases, and everything out there being very, very different and strange. But there is, I think, a lot of upside potential for this organization going forwards. One of the main reasons why a lot of this price dip has come down, you can see here from 2020, we've got this big drop in the price coming down. I view that as relative to where gold's price was, priced in dollars. Now, for me as a British stacker, as somebody who buys gold in the UK, we've seen gold stay pretty stagnant over this period. In fact, it's beaten inflation quite well. But of course, with the gold spot price ticker over here, sitting currently at $1,716 an ounce, you can just see that that's dropped down nearly $300 an ounce from where those highs of $2,000 were. And where were those highs of $2,000? Just around here in 2020 during the pandemic. So I do think there's going to be increases in this general outlook. As I said, the main key thing there is the amount of acquisitions and just general portfolio this organization has. Any kind of uptick in gold price, I think, is certainly in dollars anyway, is going to have this big impact going forwards. So yeah, that's my quick kind of one-stop shop look at Gold Mining Inc. I think they have a lot going for them in terms of that asset. You just have to look at all the different projects they've got here, and it really is a lot. Of course, we've got quite a lot in South America, which is very much different in the way that it's set up for business in terms of logistics, and different entities entirely compared with places like the United States and Canada. But one thing I think is for sure is it's a higher risk style investment than perhaps just having a lump of gold or silver in your portfolio and waiting for that price to be the right moment for you if you want to sell it. But for me, I do think that something, if you're looking at a 400% return, just $100 in 10 shares, 11 shares, you're going to get, I think, quite a lot of value coming out of this at the other end. Of course, if you want to take a higher risk and, go in for a lot more than that, that's, of course, down to each and every person's individual circumstances. And I would highly recommend that even if you've watched this video, to do a lot more research than I've just done here. I have done a lot more research in the confines of preparing for this video, and I am interested for sure. Will I be rushing out and buying lots of stocks and shares in this company? I don't think I'll buy a lot if I buy any. I think if I do, I'll have a small little hedge going. It's like with all of these big things where they go up hundreds or thousands of percentage points. You just can never know which is the one that's going to do that. but it could be this one. That's, I think, something that's really quite interesting. So that's it from me. Thank you one and all for watching. If you've enjoyed this video and you've watched to the latter stages, then a big thank you to you. By the way, I think I've had the ticker up. I should have had that up anyway in the bottom right-hand corner. They trade on the New York Stock Exchange, so you can go and check those out at your leisure. Otherwise, that is it from me. A big thank you to you all for watching. We'll see you on the next video. And as always, please make sure that you like, share, comment, and subscribe for more.